I know it's hot, huh? Wow. And I know lots of you were thinking, do I really want to go to church today? But then you thought, Dr. Mark, he likes church cool. Yeah, my church is cool. We're going to get bumper stickers that say, my church is cool. Yeah. Thank you for helping to make it cool, by the way. I'm not going to call you out. I just want to see if anybody's new today. Anybody new? Raise your hands. Because I just want to apologize in advance. Okay, good. All familiar people, so you'll understand. This is a little Hollywood story, because only in Hollywood, okay? Only in Hollywood. There was a woman, she was in about her mid-20s, very beautiful, and she met a man who had just celebrated his 90th birthday. Yeah, absolutely. 90 years old, and they fell in love. I mean, they really, really fell in love in that Hollywood kind of way. You know, like you see on the big screen, it was just a tremendous thing, and they decided to forget what the world says, forget what anybody thinks. They are getting married. So they got married, and they went on an incredible honeymoon. But the bride was a little bit worried about things, and so she said, you know, I don't want anything to happen to you, so I think we should sleep in separate rooms, okay? And he said, okay. So that night, they go off to their separate rooms, and about an hour into it, the bride hears a knock on her door. And he comes in and gets in bed with her and makes passionate love to her. I mean, he rocks her world, you know? And she thinks, whoa, this is good. And then he goes back to his room, and she falls asleep, very happy. About an hour later, there's a knock on the door. And he comes in and gets in bed with her, and he makes love to her, and he rocks her world, and she is very happy. And he goes back to his room. About an hour later, there's a knock on the door, and he comes in, and she says, honey, I'm not complaining. I just want to tell you how great I think this is. I mean, I can't believe 3 times? Really? 3 times? And he says, have I been here before? Could happen. In the Science of Mind, we teach that the universe that we live in always says yes. The universe says yes. Now, if you want to hear yes more in your life, and I know many people do because they feel like what they hear is no again and again and again, if you want to hear yes, then you have to start to say yes more. Yes is a sign of faith, I believe, that by our saying yes, you know, that actually demonstrates our faith. That's a demonstration of our belief, our power, the confidence that we have. You know, that life, that the universe is for us, is on our side. I think it's about a commitment, you know, our saying yes. So whether it's yes as a smile or a nod or a pat on somebody's back, you know, that it seems to me that part of learning how to operate in our world in a loving, successful, creative, fulfilling way is to say yes. So I had this idea about talking about the light of the world this morning. And the quote from the Bible that I've been working with was from Jesus, where he says, "Ye are the light of the world." And I thought about, so then that made me think about, okay, what are those things that stand between the light, and me being the light of the world? All of those things that we have that stand between us and the light are what create sort of pain and separation and distance in our life. So Science of Mind teaches us that the essence of what we truly are is spirit, is consciousness, that you are God individualized. You are an emanation of divine consciousness. Wow, that's great, that God is uniquely individualized in and through and as each and every one of us. So the scripture says if your eye is single, your body will be filled with light. So I think that also includes our body of affairs. So what does it mean for our eye to be single? If you focus on God and your relationship with God, and God is the source of all good in your life, your body will be filled with light. If I can keep my mind on God, on truth, on the ultimate spiritual reality, then my physical body as well as my body of affairs will be filled with light. I don't know an awful lot about quantum physics, and to tell you the truth, I'm really not that interested. I read it kind of because I have to, and it's just one of those things. But one of the things that makes sense to me that I really do like and appreciate is that quantum physics says the universe is made up of quanta, these little bursts of light, and that these little bursts of light are moving so fast and so continuously that it makes everything look solid. Now, Science of Mind says that this world of appearances, this world of effects that's around us, that the world of effects is around us, and that the gaps in the light that is moving so quickly, the gaps in between are the infinite possibilities that are held in the mind of God. So to the degree that our eye is single and our body is filled with light, our body is, to the degree that our mind is filled, that everything is the perfect activity of God, with divine intelligence, with infinite love, then the universe starts to conform itself to our perception of it. This is why it's so important to see the universe as a friendly place to be, to see the universe as a safe place to be, to see the universe as a place that's always saying yes to you. This is a great, what this is, what the whole quantum physics thing says to me is this is just a great big, it's done unto you as you believe. Yeah, that's what that comes down to. Jesus said that. It's done unto you as you believe. That your world becomes your perception of it. Your world becomes to you what you believe it to be. So if you put your attention on God and the truth of God, what's the truth of God? The truth of God is a quality. God is a quality of love and peace and abundance and balance and wholeness and creativity and all these good, wonderful things, not as a material thing, but as a spiritual truth, as a spiritual quality, a spiritual verity, an idea. These things, if we put our attention on them, they start to come forward in our life in a greater way. See, we believe where we are right now, the fullness and the allness of God already is. There's as much God right where you are right now as there ever was at any time, even in any of the great spiritual beings. So what's the difference? The difference was they believed it and we don't. They really believe that God was all there is, that God is right where they are, right now, fully present. God is right here. And we think, well, that would be nice. That would be nice. I guess I could get on board with that if I could just, have a guarantee or something like that. So we are not separate from God. That's a lie to think that we are separate from God. And the light in you is the very light of God. So your life is to reveal the good of God. And this good is a good that has no opposite. Your soul is a vehicle to reveal the good of God. So stay with me here. If you are the light of the world, all right, if you're the light of the world, are you a little 15-watt bulb, like maybe in like a little Christmas ornament, Or are you like a 40-watt bulb or like a 100-watt bulb that could really light the room? Or if you're the light of the world, are you like some big-ass stadium light, Just this big-ass stadium light that just really floods the whole place, that everybody can see from miles away. It doesn't matter to God. If you're happy with this little tiny, like, Christmas light, like one of a billion on a tree, that's like, okay, that's great. But if you're this big light of God, the universe says yes. So please know, though, that God does not play favorites. It's not like God says, oh, you're my favorite bulbs over here. And your life is going to be great. You, however, are the dim watts. And things will not go so good for you. I'm so sorry. That's nonsense. That's absolutely nonsense. You might say, well, I think God has favorites because some people seem to have it all. And the Hebrew people say that talk about the chosen people. Well, you know, in ancient times, when the peoples of the world had many, many gods, they worshipped gods, different gods for everything, right? And it was through the Hebrew people that Moses said, hey, one God, one God. We are getting out of Egypt. We are heading toward the promised land. And the ticket is that there is one God. And he had to keep reminding people one God because they wanted to slip back whenever Moses wasn't looking. You know, whenever Moses wasn't there to remind them, they wanted to go back to, well, maybe there are many gods, you know. So the Hebrew people chose one God, to follow one God. That's why they're the chosen people. Right? So in the long evolution of consciousness, this becomes really, really important because generations later, Jesus will be born through this lineage of people who believed in one God. And so Jesus Christ is the principle of manifest God I am. You know, when Moses went up on the mountain, he received the I am for a group consciousness. Now that was really important because that meant that there was now enough light, maybe just a glimmer, maybe like a birthday candle of light in the soul of the Hebrew people, but enough light so that they could start their hero's journey toward the promised land, toward a greater good. And see, there has to, that light in our soul has to be fanned that says, it could be better. It could be better. You could be healed. You could have a better experience of life. You could be more creatively fulfilled. You could be happily related. Whatever that is for you. Right? That the I am started to grow in the Hebrew people, and this is why they were able to start to make that journey, that very long, long journey toward the promised land. But the I am was given for group consciousness, right? And then it took generations before the I am could be revealed through an individual, which is what Jesus did. That was part of what he brought into the consciousness of humanity. So we have to choose to be chosen. We have to choose to individualize the one God, the principle of manifest God I am. Because only an individual with enough light in their soul can choose to begin this work, can choose to begin their hero's journey. Only an individual with enough light in their soul can choose to do their own healing work. See, this is the Christ path, when you initiate your own spiritual growth. Rather than waiting for stuff to happen to you and then scrambling, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this one? Right? Rather than that, we say, you know, I know where my work is. We do. Don't you know where your spiritual work is? You know where you need to love. You know where you need to forgive. You know where you need to make peace. You know where you need to just let it go. We all know that. But we don't all do it, do we? Right? So the Christ path is to say, you know, I know where my spiritual growth is. I'm going to work on that. Because if you don't initiate your spiritual growth yourself, now that you know as much as you know, life will initiate you. I don't like that part. I really don't. I really don't. So I'd rather go after it myself on my terms, you know? Only the individual can choose to rise out of the pack, and the pack has an enormous agreement for mediocrity and lack and limitation. You know, that we get to choose to focus on our oneness with God and let our light really shine. Because with enough light in our soul, we can choose to live in the awareness that the individualized presence of God is active in our lives now. Right? Now that takes some degree of light in our soul to really believe, wow, that's right. The individualized presence of God is active in my life right now. That's why we're so encouraging for people to establish and maintain a relationship with this inner presence, right? Only then do we begin to receive the fruits of God that are promised throughout the scriptures of the ages. See, everything good in our life comes out of an awareness of our oneness with God. If you look at some area of your life that's working pretty well, and we all have areas that are pretty good, right? Don't we? Everybody has some areas that are pretty good. If you look at those areas, there's something there that you believe. There's something that you're believing. There's some degree of faith that you have there. There's some degree of trust that you have there that you pretty much believe like God's going to take care of it. And God does, because you are fertile ground for that to come forward, for that to take place there. But then areas of our life where we don't believe we're connected, where we don't have faith, those areas don't work so well. So the more deeply you are convinced of that truth, that you are one with the source, and out of an awareness of your oneness with God, all good comes, the more you are convinced of that, the brighter the light that you are can shine. So if you're a spiritual light bulb, it would serve you best to meet and comply with electricity, right? If you were a light bulb, it would be best to work in accord with electricity. So that means that you'd have to be plugged in and turned on, doesn't it? We say, well, then what? Well, then your light shines. When you're plugged in, when you're turned on, your light shines. And you, not someone or something outside of you, decides how bright you get to be. Isn't that great? You get to decide. You're the one. Right? Some people, we see them, are meeting the necessary requirements, right? They are plugged in and they are turned on. Now, what we have to remember is no one has more God than you. No one has more God than you. And stop telling yourself that, because it's a lie. It diminishes your capacity to shine your light. Or just like telling yourself anything else that's limiting, I'm not enough, or I'm too old, or I'm not educated enough, or who's going to want me, or there's no job for people my age. Knock it off. Just knock it off. That diminishes you and your capacity to shine the light of God that already exists within you. We get to choose the one. We get to develop, we had a meditation workshop here yesterday with Terry, and it was great. His one more week, next week you can come. It's from 10 to 12. I got so much out of it. And he talked about developing skillful behaviors. So not only do we get to choose one God, one life, one love, we get to develop skillful behaviors and practices that allow the light of the living God to shine brighter and brighter through us. And yes, it's possible, it's available for us to up our wattage. Isn't that great? That's what I should have called the talk today. Up your wattage. Yeah. But people would have gotten the wrong idea about that, I mean, to say that to people. When you see people and they're not being their best self, you could say, hey, up your wattage. That would probably cause more trouble than good, though, so we'll just skip that. In our Living My Life Purpose class that I teach, we talk about a calling. That you as a soul, hovering above the earth, came in with a calling. Now, a calling is what our soul really came here to do, which is to glorify God in some unique and different ways for each of us. So it's not a job, but it could include a job. You didn't come here for just a job. But part of your calling, when you are fully expressing the God presence within you, part of your calling might be your job. Does that make sense? Right? But how you live your life is really, what we see is that when that's in alignment with your true calling and purpose, a lot of God gets expressed. So it doesn't have to look a particular way. So what I'm talking about is what you are living for and where you are living from. See, so that's really different. What am I living for? What did my soul come here to express? What qualities of God did I come to put into the world? What has heart and meaning for me? And what's the consciousness, what's the place of love, the ground that I stand on, that I live from? See, Ernest Holmes says that God is love and God is law. And so the law we work with intelligently, and he says you do that by affirmative prayer. And he says the love, though, is a presence that you court. And how you court the presence is you become still, you become quiet, you turn your attention inward, you meditate, and you listen. And when you court the presence regularly, you will know why you're here. See, I think we didn't incarnate just to become masters of manipulating outer conditions. And yes, that is certainly a small part of metaphysics, but your soul did not come here to just be comfortable. Your soul came here, for more than an improved humanhood. Now I got to tell you, I love an improved humanhood. I love comfort. I'd say all the time, I was not built for speed. I was built for comfort, you know? I know so many people, though, who live their lives like, you know, layaway is back. Did you know that? I think when the economy went down in 2008, all of a sudden somebody said, hey, we'll still sell people stuff if we do layaway. You know, and so now you can actually buy things on layaway. I remember that when I was a little kid. That like my mother would start at the beginning of the summer putting our school clothes on layaway, hopefully having them paid for by the time school started. Or not. Whatever, you know. So, but I think people do that with their life. They kind of do their life on layaway. When I get all these other things taken care of, then I'm going to let my light shine. When I take care of my spouse and my family and my parents and my children and my grandchildren and my neighbors and the block that I live on and everything else, you know, and that's endless. That is absolutely endless. To say, someday, I will let my light shine. Then I'll really, really be me. It'll be my time. But you know, we live in a universe that responds by corresponding. Ernest Holmes teaches this. He says, you think you have to deal with other things before you can really let your light shine? Well, the universe will keep giving you things to deal with. If that's what we have wired, right? That's that quantum physics thing. If you think you have to deal with other things before you can really show up and participate fully and do what you came here to do and express yourself and live from love and be a creative being, then the universe is going to keep giving you more and more and more things to deal with because the universe is corresponding to your belief. Now, what we teach is that you are whole, perfect, and complete right now. That God is right where you are now, that this is a holy instant and you could decide differently just like that. And so here's what I think we got to do. Daily, on a daily basis. It's a daily thing. It's spiritual maintenance. You got to let go of the past. Whatever the labels are that have been heaped upon you by yourself or other people, your history with your family of origin, the false beliefs you have, the past, the exes, the bosses, all of that stuff, personal history, just daily. You got to let it go. Because you know, it's amazing how even though you go to sleep at night, it's right there in the morning when you wake up, isn't it? It's right there. It's like saying, good morning. Please don't think about starting your day without us. We're your issues. The problem with that is that it binds us to the world of limitation. You know, you say, well, I can't forget my past, but wouldn't you like to? You know? Well, people have said terrible things to me. Well, just like when somebody puts a name tag, a name label on you, you take it off at the end of the night. You know, you don't like leave it on your jacket or your sweater forever. You and I as spiritual beings are more than all of that. You know, in the Bible it says God will not be mocked. I like that. I thought about that and it says, you know, you can believe that you were limited. You can believe that you were not enough. But that does not limit God in you. The truth is the truth. That you are of God. That your life is the life of God. And you are here to reveal that. Then it necessarily follows that you let go of, that you do not participate in the world's agreement for limitation and lack and sickness and not enoughness. You have to lift out of that. You have to lift out of that. That may be what everybody else is talking about, but you have to silently say to yourself, I don't choose that. I don't choose that. That's not for me. I choose something else. I'm willing to have something better, something different. I want my light to really shine. And I know the world, your little voice says, oh, but you know, not everybody can have what they want. There's not enough of this, and now, you know, after life is hard, and then you die, and you know. Give that up. You just got to give that up. You know, be concerned with your consciousness. Be concerned with your connection with God. You know, a light bulb does not negotiate with electricity. You know? Think of this. Remember back, those of you who were here when we had the last big earthquake, I know people who, they had so much come down in their homes that there were rooms that they just didn't go into for years. Years. They just said, well, everything fell in that room. I don't need to go in that room. And they just didn't open the door for years. Years. So now imagine that you're deciding to go into that room finally. Since the earthquake, 2004, time has passed. You decide you'd better check in case anybody was sleeping in there. You crack open the door and you reach your arm in there and maneuver it around and you feel around for the light switch. There it is. There it is. And you flick it on, and the light goes on. The room lights up. It doesn't say, wait, we've been in darkness for years. We've been all alone. We've been feeling so abandoned. We've been so unloved. We have been ignored since the earthquake in 2004. Just on and on. Have I got a story to tell? You can't just turn on the light. I've got a story I've been rehearsing all these years. I'm limited. I'm not enough. It's why nobody's turned on my light. It doesn't matter that for so long that you weren't plugged in. The important thing is that you are plugged in and turned on now. Doesn't matter how long we've sat in the dark. Isn't that wonderful news? It's like, well, that's fine. That's fine that you said, but I've been sitting in the dark so long. Great. Do you want to come into the light now? You know what it's like? It's like if you're outside and on the shady side of a building. You could stand in the shade and just be so committed to the shade. But on a nice, cool day, there are people on the other side of the building standing in the sun. And you can be on that shady side of the building just boo-hooing and boo-hooing about how the sun doesn't shine on you. When people are over there on the other side of the building saying, hey, come over here. Not only is the sun shining, there's a party. And if you would get off your pity pot, you could be with us, but please don't bring that over here. So the idea is to focus on God. Keep your eye single. I don't know what you're called to do, but I am certain that something within you, that something that is God, knows what you were called here to do. And so you could start to ask yourself, how do I put God qualities, the God qualities within me, into the world? And as I said, it's daily, it's maintenance. Daily, you let go of your history. At church here, we are not here to agree with your perceived limitation or brokenness. Now, that might sound like it doesn't have compassion, but I believe there are lots of places in the world, I think it's really easy to get agreement for brokenness and limitation. When you come to church, we're here to know a greater truth about you, that God in you is greater than the apparent limitation and difficulty that you are dealing with. People will sometimes say to me, well, I wasn't in church for 2 weeks, and you didn't call me. And I say, did you let me know? Did you let someone know? No, did you let me know? And it's like, well, no, I was sick. And it's like, well, this is the science of mind. And if I don't see you for 2 weeks, because I don't take attendance, I assume that you were like on the beach in Cancun with one of those drinks with a plastic monkey and an umbrella in it, and you're looking at the ocean, and you're all covered in something that smells like coconuts and bananas, and you were having the time of your life. That's, if I don't see you, I think you're making a film on location in Provence. I don't think that you were in the gutter dead. So, we have to detach on a daily basis from the world's limitation. I would rather people think that I'm in Provence filming than that I'm in the gutter. See, the entire universe is working together for your good. The entire universe is working for the qualities of God that are unique in you to come forward. And your job is to plug in and turn on and let your light shine. Let's pray. So we turn our attention inward now for a moment to just recognize that we are surrounded and filled with an infinite loving spirit. It's God. And I claim for each and every one of us that the light of God within us is greater than anything that we have experienced in life thus far. I know that it does not serve God and it does not serve us to hide our light under a bushel, to play small, that no one is served by us not being all the God that we are. And so I claim for each and every one of us today, we let our past go, we remember our oneness with God, and we let the qualities of God that are within our soul come forward into expression in the world. I know for each and every one of us that what's in store for us is greater than anything that we have experienced thus far. And so we include in our prayer our family members and friends and loved ones. I know that right where they are, God is. We let our prayer be a blessing in the world around us, so that all situations that pull at our attention, we say the perfect activity of God is right there, as peace, as supply, as harmony, as divine right understanding. We bless our church, we bless all churches, synagogues and temples and mosques and ashrams, all paths to God. And I'm certain that we are blessed by being together, that we all get raised up, that we are all willing for the light of God within each other to shine brightly, that nobody gets raised up by somebody else being diminished. So I know that we all get raised up in the infinite light of God within. And so with an open, gracious heart, I just give thanks, I release this word, and so it is. Together we all say, Amen.